Now there are a number of visual aids that are available for you to use during your presentation. Remember that an audience may become bored or agitated if you use one single method of delivery for your presentation, so try to enhance the presentation by using visual aids. Now there are a number of rules that you need to follow whilst using visual aids. Now what I've got next to me here is what's known as a flip chart. It's a common visual aid that's used in presentation. The flip chart itself just consists of a number of sheets of paper. Now make sure when you're preparing for your presentation that there are sufficient sheets of paper available for you to use to give the presentation effectively. One of the first golden rules whilst using the flip chart is to make sure that it's actually positioned on the correct side for your presentation. Now you'll see here that whilst I'm standing talking to you, the flip chart is on the right hand side of me. Now the problem with this is that I'm actually right-handed, so when I come to write on the flip chart it's quite difficult for me to achieve. So what I need to do is to make sure that the flip chart itself is actually to the left hand side of me whilst giving the presentation. I also need to make sure that the flip chart is not actually obstructing any screen or other visual aid which I want to use at a later time. So as mentioned, make sure that there are sufficient sheets of paper for you to get your message across. Now when writing on the flip chart itself, there are a number of guidelines that you need to follow. Too many presenters turn their back to the audience when writing on the sheet of paper. For example, they will do this. So as you can all see, we're going to be talking today about presenting. One of the biggest mistakes whilst talking to your audience is to have your back to them. Now that was a bad method of delivery for the presentation. If I intend to actually write on the flip chart, I need to look at the audience and be side on whilst I'm actually writing, as follows. So as you can all see, the topic that we're going to be talking about today is presenting. Make sure that whilst you're writing on the flip chart, everybody can see what you're writing. Therefore, it is important for the flip chart to be on the correct side of the hand that you write with. Now, another mistake that some presenters make when using the flip chart is they tend to write off at an angle. You'll see that my arm naturally wants to go this way. So make sure you practice writing so that it goes across, so that the audience don't actually pick up either on your poor spelling or the way that you're writing. Make sure that it runs horizontal to the actual ground itself. Now some things that presenters like to do before they actually give the presentation is to write on the flip chart itself. So this makes it very easy when you come to get across a point. For example, I've already written underneath this sheet of paper, so therefore when I'm talking to the audience, I'm going to be talking today about presentation skills. Make sure that if you're using this method of delivery that they can actually see the screen and that you know what's written underneath the sheet of paper. The last thing you want to do is to actually pull over your sheet of paper and find that there's something there that you don't intend to be. Now another important tip whilst using the flip chart as a visual aid is to make sure the pen that you're using is of a strong bold colour, something like black, dark blue, red or green. I would not recommend that you use a colour such as yellow because the audience will struggle to see it. Finally, make sure the pen that you're using actually contains ink and it is easy to write with. I've seen time and time again many presenters go up to the flip chart to use a pen that doesn't actually work. So the key here is to make sure that you prepare your presentation and the visual aids that you're going to use. Now, another useful visual aid that is available to you is that of the television and the DVD player. Now, when using either of these items during presentation purposes, make sure you follow a number of key rules. whilst these are simple, it is surprising how many presenters actually forget them. The first one is to make sure you know exactly how the equipment works. Sometimes you may be presenting in a room which you are unfamiliar with. You go into the room and you notice that there is a television and a DVD or a video player. Make sure that you know how to use them before you use the material itself. That will involve getting to the venue early so that you can make sure you go through every part of the system so that it works correctly. The second most important rule is to make sure that the audience itself can actually see the screen, and the screen is large enough for them to see it. If you are talking or public speaking to a large group of people, then a screen of this size may not be relevant or useful to you. So make sure the screen itself can be seen by the audience and that it's actually large enough. Now, sometimes you may be presenting in a room where there's quite a lot of sunlight coming in. The problem with a television and the use of a DVD player is that sometimes the sunlight rays can catch on the television. So make sure that if you're using them, that there are blinds available or you are able to turn the lights off. When you're using a tape or a DVD, make sure that the footage is actually at the position that you want it to start. So when you come to use this visual aid, you can say to the audience, okay, now we're going to watch a 5-minute section of footage which will help me to explain the point in more detail. You go to turn on the DVD player, press play, and away you go. There is nothing worse than having to sit there as an audience whilst the presenter fidgets and fumbles around with the DVD player looking for the footage before it commences. So make sure that you are fully prepared when using this type of visual aid. Good morning everybody, my name is Richard McMunn, and for the next 10 to 15 minutes I will be teaching you how to give an effective presentation. Now before we begin, there's a number of preliminaries that I want to cover to ensure that your experience during this presentation is a pleasant one. To begin with, the building itself has a fire alarm contained within it. If the fire alarm goes off, then it is not a test, and I would like you all to make your way out of the building, down the stairs to the side, taking care to the front of the building, to the roll point area, and a roll call will be taken. Okay, so please make your way out of the building if the fire alarm sounds in an orderly fashion. Toilet facilities. At the rear of the room, in the corner, there is a door which leads to the toilet facilities. If anybody needs to use the toilet at any point during the presentation, please feel free to get up and do so. Okay, it's a relaxed atmosphere. Please feel free to get up. Okay, refreshments. Everybody's got either a glass of water, a cup of tea or a cup of coffee. Everybody's happy. Okay, fantastic. Now your comfort is really important today. Can everybody first of all see the screen? Excellent. Can everybody hear me clearly? Even those at the back, can you hear me? Okay, great. If at any point during the presentation you can't hear me, please just put your hand up and say so. Now throughout the presentation I'll be using a number of visual aids. The second visual aid that I'll use, apart from the presentation screen, is the actual flip chart itself. So I'll be moving around, so make sure you're all in a position that you can see the visual aids. Okay, finally, asking questions. If you have any questions, please will you leave them till the end of the presentation. The reason why I ask this is because I only have approximately 10 to 15 minutes with you today, and a multitude of questions could take up a lot of that time. So please, if you have any questions, write them down and ask them at the end of the presentation. Okay, is everybody happy? Brilliant. Now, the presentation content will follow these three areas. The introduction itself will be a small part of the presentation, and I will cover during this section the importance of a good presentation. It's very important when you're giving a presentation that you make sure it is professional, and I'll be showing you exactly how to do that. The second important topic of the introduction is preparation, how you can prepare effectively for the presentation. Finally, I will have a brief look into motivation and you having the belief that you can give a strong and effective presentation. Once we've covered the introduction, we will then go into the presentation itself, and I will talk about the structure and how important that is and the time that you have available to you. We will then look at the content that you need to put in the presentation. Finally, we will look at technique. Technique is very important when you're presenting. And then finally, the summary, which will be the final part of the presentation. We will talk about conclusions, what we found out during this presentation, and then finally, if you have any of those questions, that is the time to ask me. Okay, is everybody clear so far? Excellent. Okay, the introduction, the importance of a good presentation. Now, first of all, the audience obviously expects you to deliver. Now, you're all sat there watching me presenting today. If I actually came into this presentation and did not give you good, sound information and interesting information, then I wouldn't be delivering to your expectations. So, at the forefront of my mind, before I came here today, was the fact that you all expect me to deliver, which is what I will do during this presentation. So, when you're getting ready for your presentation, make sure that you understand that the audience expects. They want you to deliver. The audience, in most circumstances, when presenting, will be on your side. So bear that in mind. They don't want you to fail during the presentation. They want you to deliver a good presentation. That's very important. Now, professionalism and accountability is very important too. You want to look professional when you're giving your presentation. And remember that if you're giving a presentation on behalf of your company or organisation, then that presentation needs to be good and you are accountable for making sure that it is delivered efficiently and competently. Now, the only way that you'll be able to do that is through preparation, which we'll come on to later. And the final point, one which is only a small point but is very important, is that of pride. You should take pride in your presentation and the way that you put yourself across. Remember that first impressions count, but also you want your audience to walk out of the presentation and say, he or she was great. I remember everything that they taught me, because they were both interesting and they took a pride in the way that they delivered the presentation. So when you go to the presentation, all of the equipment that you use will be good. It will be professional. The content of the presentation will be professional, and you will also look professional too. Now, in the majority of cases, when you're either public speaking or presenting, make sure that you dress appropriately for the occasion. Now, that doesn't always necessarily mean that you need to wear a suit and a tie like myself today, but I want to come across in a professional manner. I have pride in my appearance, so I have chose to wear this outfit. The presentation mode that you may be in might require you to wear jeans or a shirt or a casual uniform. That is actually fine, but make sure that what you wear is suitable for the occasion. So that's a little bit about the presentation itself during the introduction. One of the most important things is preparation, preparation, preparation. You must prepare for your presentation, and that involves a number of key facts. The first one is making sure that you know the subject that you're talking about. If you don't know the subject that you're talking about, you might come into the presentation and fall short because you don't know the actual material. Also, somebody might ask you a question which you don't know, and it could be embarrassing for you. So make sure you prepare, first of all, by knowing your subject matter. Secondly, and very important, is that you can use a number of visual aids to enhance your presentation. If you are going to use the visual aids, make sure that they are professional, that they are in context to your presentation, and also that they work. Make sure that they work, and also that you know exactly how to use them. There's nothing worse than going up to a screen, pressing a button, and nothing happens.